Hi, James.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for helping my project.
Oh, not a problem.
Could you say a couple words about yourself?
My name is James. I'm a huge geek and a huge nerd. Growing up, I was always really big into science, astronomy. This is back in the 70s and 80s, when I was growing up. And I remember when I was about 10 years old, my dad gave me a book on space travel.
Okay.
That included a section at the back end with all the detailed schematics for the upcoming space shuttle.
Oh, wow.
And I had my own telescope, and all that. So I've really been kind of interested in space and astronomy and other strange theories about stuff. So I don't know how to compile all that for you, but
Well, I guess first of all, do you have an idea on how your interest got started? Was it your parents that kind of encouraged it, or did you come across something, or just natural curiosity of being a kid? I mean, like, how did you get started?
I would say it was natural curiosity. I did a lot of reading when I was a kid.
Okay.
I would travel 2 or 3 miles to the local library and check out 4 or 5 books a week and come home and read them, And of course, a lot of that influence was books by like Robert Heinlein and, things along that line. So I was always into the science fiction novels and things along that line. So,
Do you remember your first Robert Heinlein novel?
I can't remember the title, unfortunately. It's been so long, I can't remember the title, but basically it was the one where they were in a generation ship.
Okay.
And they had come back. They had gone out into the galaxy and they ran into some trouble. And right at the last minute, a ship from Earth came because it had been thousands of years since they left Earth.
Wow.
And they actually had the technology to catch up to them and whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I think mine was A Door into Summer. I don't know if you remember that one. That's like the long sleep, and he ends up doing time travel to come back. And,
Oh, okay.
And he invented like the main character invents like all these like labor saving devices to help.
Right.
So.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
At the beginning, there's like this cat that. Wants to go out and use the restroom, but every door has snow in it, and he like complains about his owner. It's really good. Anyway, but I like Robert Heinlein.
Oh yeah,
myself,
he's definitely an interesting author. So.
Well, I guess first off, did you see the first moon landing?
I would have been 4 years old
4 years old, okay.
when the first moon landing happened. So I didn't really know much about it at that time because, again, I was 4 years old. But I do remember doing things like when we had eclipses and stuff, I would have like a little reflector thing so I could see it on the ground and stuff like that. It was only when I got to be a little bit older that I understood more about NASA's program, and I was always fascinated with rockets. I used to build model rockets and flying rockets and all that. So the moon landing, it's really interesting because there's a lot of things that don't fit with the moon landing. For example, our cell phone has a gazillion times more computing power than they had back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And yet we put a man on the moon. Why haven't we gone back?
Well, we also put a probe on Mars as well.
Right.
And, send a probe to Venus and
Right.
the Voyager probes, which are amazingly still out there working.
Right.
Obviously not running Windows, but...
Obviously. At least not Windows XP or Windows Millennium.
So, it's just kind of amazing what they were able to do with the technology in those areas as well.
Well, in many ways, it's almost an analogous to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, they had technology to make steel, bronze armor. They had essentially plate armor, the lorica, And that technology after the fall of the Roman Empire died until coming into the early periods of the Renaissance, right at the tail end of the Dark Ages. They were starting able to reduplicate a lot of those things. So you'd think it's like, okay, we have the technology now. Why is there still a struggle to send a man back to the moon?
Right. I can give you my answer.
Okay, go ahead.
One is, it's a lot easier to, as a contractor building the rocket, it's a lot better to keep it on the ground, charging every year for testing, than it is to launch and potentially have a disaster.
Right.
So that would kind of like be my cynical answer to that.
Well, getting back to some of the anomalies about the first moon landing. First thing was, when they were in orbit, when they were about to do their landing, they were doing all their scans. Okay. They were doing topographical scans and gravity scans and all that kind of stuff. the computers back on Earth kept giving this weird error code.
Right.
Okay, was it the 002C or something, whatever it was.
Right.
And they couldn't figure it out. And it's like, after a few seconds, it would clear. And then it would just keep coming back up. And, the guys are on the capsule, they're like, we're getting this error, we don't know what it means.
Sure.
And they've got reams of paper. This is back in the days when they had mainframes.
Right.
They had these reams of paper trying to go through it. The official explanation was that the computers were buffering the amount of data.
Right, they had turned on the radar.
They had turned
so
on the
that
radar.
it'd be easier to redock.
Right.
But the computer couldn't make it through all of its instructions and kept going back and registering.
The question is, what was that information the radar was picking up that caused their systems to overload and buffer? Okay, it wouldn't be just, there's the moon, there's a crater, there's a mountain.
But, you got to realize, this is in the era before.
Right.
Bill Gates is like 512 kilobytes is like all the space you'll ever need. These they're like managing like individual bits in terms of the amount of data that they can store and process. Kind of thinking back to like the computing of the time. Highly constrained environments.
Exactly. But again, the question is though, they were only focused on a particular area of the moon where they're going to do the landing.
But the radar is only telling you, distance.
Okay. Okay. Well, in World War II, when radar was developed, we were using radar to bomb Germany.
Sure.
They didn't get these error codes. And their computer technology was literally warehouses full of radio tubes or vacuum tubes that were processing the information. They didn't get those codes. So what was out there that was causing their system to go haywire? What information were they getting that could not be processed by the computer? Because the computer's programmed, I'm an IT person, a computer's programmed with a set of variables, and if you get something outside of a variable, you get an error. So they programmed everything they knew at the time about what to expect, and yet something was outside of that variable. So this was after how many years of probes to the moon?
Sure.
Satellite drive-by, flybys to the moon, all this kind of stuff. And yet something out there exceeded the variables that they programmed it for. Okay? Interesting question, right?
It is. There's like this book I read. I think it's it's written by like the people that actually created the computer systems for it, and they kind of walk through the development of it and that particular error message and lots of other stuff. It might be perhaps you would find that interesting as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to check that out. Now, another thing that's weird is when the lander, I think it was the lander or some other experiment they did, when it hit the moon rang like a bell for like 3 days. They recorded this back at NASA. It created these seismic vibrations across the entire surface of the moon, and it sounded like it was hollow. Okay, so again, that begs the question. If you have a moon that is mostly hollow or has caverns or whatever inside of it, and then you try to do a radar scan of that, especially if it had any sort of early era ground penetrating radar.
Have you seen that movie where it's like the moon's a mega structure? Type thing? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that.
What's the name of it?
I can't remember right off the top of my head, but yeah. Huh?
I think it was Moon.
Well, I think Moon was the one where he's like all by himself on the moon, and then every time he like dies and like a new guy comes and he like figures it out, it's like a horror movie. But
So I mean, there are some anomalies there. There are some things that are strange. I think the moon landing was real, though. Okay, I do think it was real. However, I think they found something there that has been kept under wraps. Apollo 17. That's when they had the buggy. One of the ones that has a buggy.
Right.
They leave the buggy. They trot off to this little ridge. The camera goes dead for like 20 minutes.
Okay.
Then they come back. They load up. They leave. We don't go back to the moon ever again.
Yeah.
So what happened? What happened in that 20 minutes? What did they see? Who did they see? What did they encounter? And does the government really know, or what? But there's anomalies there.
So
We had the technology 50 years ago in the 60s to go to the moon. Our technology's better. Why haven't we gone back?
now, I guess, do you know that NASA's planning to go back to the moon?
Right.
And what do you think about that? Do you see this as a chance to kind of get answers to some of those questions, or do you think it's a good idea? I mean, like, what's your thoughts?
Well, since they've discovered that the lunar soil now comprises of a rare O3 molecule, which could be used for rocket fuel, it doesn't surprise me now, just like many places in the world, oh, we found some new minerals. Let's go. So that doesn't surprise me. It would not surprise me, though, if we have actually been to the moon since the 60s. It would not surprise me if we have a moon base on the moon. And it would not surprise me if whatever treaties that we had with whatever is there either expired or we've been given the go-ahead to come back, one or the other. Because there's no reason why wouldn't we go back for 30 or 40 years?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we?
I mean, some people say, it's not surprising that we stopped going after Apollo 17. It's more surprising that we had Apollo 12, because if you look at the big sort of geopolitical push, it was to beat the Russians. And it's almost like everything after Apollo 11 was a victory lap type of thing.
Right.
So I mean, to what extent do you think that kind of caused us not to go back, or do you think that's not a
I think it played a part, but I don't think it's that big of a part, because you have to look at Russia and the United States at the time. Yes, there was this one-upmanship with the Cold War and whatever. Russia, even more so than us, we had our failures.
Okay.
Their failures were much more catastrophic than ours in trying to get a man to the moon.
Right.
And now, granted, they were the first one to have a satellite in space. They were the first one to put a man in space. They were the first one to do a moonwalk or a spacewalk in space.
Yep.
They beat us on all those technological marks, but we beat them to the moon.
I know, if the sprinter is already winning all the trophies, they come over ultra marathon, and let's see how they do.
I think what happened there was we outmoneyed them.
Okay.
We spent more money on it to play catch up. To the point where, and keep in mind, it wasn't just, we're going to go to the moon. It was a national project. It was like the Manhattan Project.
Right. I mean, everybody knew about it.
Everybody, the best minds of our country were involved in this in every aspect of it, just like with the Manhattan Project. Okay? And when you have something on that scale, you're going to be able to play catch up and get it done if everybody's behind it. And everybody was behind it. The people were behind it. The government was behind it. The industry was behind it. The technology producers were behind it. Everybody was behind it. It's really interesting to see how a country can come together in a common goal and exceed all the expectations. I think that's something that's been lost.
Absolutely.
Now, here's another thing to think about too. There's another thing to think about. The moon would be the perfect staging point for a manned mission to Mars.
Okay.
Let's assume that there's not a moon base. Within 5 years, there will be. Something that they will be able to process the O3 into rocket fuel and use that, because the gravity on the moon is much lighter than Earth. The biggest hurdle through hardcore space exploration is getting something from Earth to orbit.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's...
Once you got it in orbit,
right,
you can, the sky's the limit.
I think Robert Heinlein said you're halfway to anywhere in the solar system.
So if you use the moon as a stepping point, have your moon be your launch vehicle to Mars. You've already cut your costs more than half.
Plus, there's no atmosphere on the moon.
No atmosphere.
You don't have to worry about fighting air resistance.
Right, exactly. So you could build lighter material rockets that don't require as much fuel. If you use once you get it going out of the moon's gravity, you just kind of let it sail. You know, I've heard that, or I've read that they're working on some form of an ion drive right now that they have good results with.
Yeah.
So that technology for going further out is coming into play. But I think if we put the entire country behind such a project, we can easily be to Mars within 5 years.
But I feel like what we're missing is for like the vision of what could be.
Right.
You know, that we're kind of stuck into, you know, how much taxes are you paying, and you know, our trade deficits, and kind of like the minutia of everyday of keeping society running, as opposed to this bold vision of how things, like the Star Trek vision.
Right.
Like we don't have a common shared vision of what good looks like.
Right.
I was wondering if you felt the same way.
I do, and you know, again, being somebody that was born in 1965, I grew up watching Gene Roddenberry Star Trek.
Okay.
And the way he presented the original Star Trek, I don't agree with some of the philosophy behind it.
Okay.
But the idea that, you know, we can come together and do this thing. We can be a force for good. We can be, you know, because I mean, if you read a lot of the Star Trek stories, that's the history of the Earth. The Earth went through all these wars. It was practically uninhabitable. They had to expand out into space, and that's what started the Federation. And now they turn all that to the betterment of other worlds. You know, that's what Roddenberry's vision was. It can be done, but there's another element missing in this society today. Back in the 60s with the NASA project to go to the moon. Back in the 40s with the Manhattan Project and trying to end World War II. The country came together under a feeling of sacrifice. Everybody sacrificed. In World War II, everybody was on rations.
Right.
Everybody took their metal to the scrapyard. Everybody contributed. Even the leaders and the elite and the politicians contributed. They sacrificed as well so we could win. Same thing in the 60s. Everybody sacrificed.
But do we need a war to make us come together, or is there some other way?
We need a psychological enemy.
A psychological, something that external that kind of unites us.
Yeah.
I think Ronald Reagan said that if aliens showed up, you would see a united Earth. That could be the best
exactly.
thing. Of course, I sometimes wonder if you might have some people like it'd be like those other shows where you have like the aliens and some humans are like working with the aliens against the other humans, and it's like, you know, they figure out some way to do that power struggle.
Well, we've seen how, especially in this country, I can't speak for other countries because I haven't really been to that many of them. In this country, though, we have seen how communities and even neighboring states will come together after a natural disaster. Look at the recent hurricanes in North Carolina, Helene, you know, and whatnot. Even the one here in Texas, Beryl. And, you know, people will come together, you know, to help each other out.
Oh, you can hear like the flood of like 4 years Hurricane Harvey, I think.
I wasn't here for Harvey.
Oh, you weren't here for Harvey, but I mean, you had people like taking out their personal boats and going rescuing other people.
Exactly. I think Americans overall, I think we are the most generous group of people compared to many other parts of the world. I think we are willing to come together to help everybody out. Here's the problem: when you have your leadership and your elite not making the sacrifice and expecting you to do with less,
sending other people's kids off to war, that type of thing.
Exactly. Then the people they're not willing to sacrifice. Why should I?
Right.
Why should I? That needs to change. The leadership needs to sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
The leadership needs to lead and set the example. That's the way it used to be in this country. You know, I'm not saying this country is perfect. No country is perfect. We've got our dark side. I've studied it, I know. You know, but when push comes to shove, World War I, World War II, you know, we come together to accomplish a goal. And I think we can do that. We've got to come together, not just as Americans, but as a people of this planet. This planet's going to get used up eventually. 100 million years from now, the sun's going to go red and we're all going to die.
Sure.
Okay? We're going to have to expand out if we're going to survive. We can't do it by being petty.
That's true. Yeah.
And worrying about, oh, well, you got 20 acres and I've only got 5. I want your other 10. it doesn't work that way. People are so selfish these days.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not going to get anybody anywhere except 6 feet under. You know, that's my firm belief on that. So, you know, and as far as the moon goes, well, good luck to them. Maybe they'll find ET or something. I don't know. That'd be great. You know, point his little finger towards. Still trying to call home because you couldn't get you couldn't get reception before.
I should have gone Sprint or
Yeah. Now, see, now if I was a marketing genius, that's what I would do. Have ET on the moon, like, you know, and with Verizon Wireless, you can call home too. You know.
What's that one? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now with that commercial?
Exactly. So
That's going to be Elon Musk when he gets up there.
yeah.
With the
Starlink.
Starlink, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, like the last hurricane, Hurricane Beryl, was it? So we had power but no internet. I went down to Best Buy, got the Starlink dish, and then I was like set up. You know, I had some issues with billing, but other than that, once I got that,
Yeah.
so it's good.
Yeah.
So in 200 years, do you think we're on multiple planets or still only on one?
Now, I've read some strange stories about people that claim that they've been part of military and or government groups that have been sent to other planets, not just in the solar system, in other parts of the galaxy.
Like through wormholes or teleportation
Right.
or something.
Active deals with these other alien races, where we'll send you some officers, you send us some people, and
Like an exchange program.
like an
type
exchange
thing.
program. I've seen some of these stories. I do think that there are multiple alien species in the universe. I think we're in contact with most of them. Some of them are trying to help us. Some of them are trying to not help us, or worse. I think the government knows about it. Or when I say the government, the president and even most of Congress may not know about it.
Right.
But the ones in the know about it.
It might be like Independence Day where, they like that type of.
Yeah, that was a
setup.
great scene. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Mr. President, that's not entirely true.
Yes.
You know, so I do think that there's that influence there. And like I said, it would not surprise me if we have a base on the moon right now. It would not surprise me if we have clandestine stations in orbit, either around the moon or around the Earth. I mean, because you know, that's the weird thing about the planets is there are dead zones where you get in a little geomagnetic hole and you can't be detected.
But
You know,
the South
Silence in
Atlantic.
northern Mexico.
Yeah,
Oh, what is it?
There's an area in northern Mexico called the Zone of Silence.
Oh, really?
Nothing works.
Nothing. Okay.
yeah. You know,
And then like the South Atlantic anomaly off the Brazil, where like the magnetosphere is a little less strong.
Yeah.
And
You know, but in space, there are these little zones where you can't be detected by radar, infrared, nothing.
that's interesting.
You know, I think there's what is that zone? It's between the Earth and the Sun. There's a particular
There's a
zone.
there's a dead zone.
Yeah, and supposedly, you know, that Black X spacecraft that keeps going up every 6 months and coming down. That's
It's up
unmanned.
now.
Oh, is that the one that like the Boeing craft? It's like looks like a mini shuttle.
It's the
Yeah.
X-37.
The X-37.
Where's the Starship that went up? You know, the rocket that just got caught with Elon Musk?
And they're going to be launching again on Tuesday.
Where's the rocket that was on top of it?
It's in the Indian Ocean.
No, this was a Starship.
No, I did. They got
Went
image.
up. Where did it? They're not just going to drop that thing into the ocean.
They did, yeah. But I mean, they got
I'll
it.
tell you that.
No, but I got video. I got video. They have video of it landing and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, once you get there, you could be anywhere.
See, I can see the U.S. government doing that. I don't see Elon Musk doing that.
Really?
Because
You should watch the live stream on Tuesday. It'll be Tuesday afternoon. They'll be launching for Boca Chica again.
I will. I watched the last one again.
Okay, final question.
Okay,
If you could take a trip to space, would you?
Yes.
Yes?
I've always wanted to go to space when I was a kid. In fact, my dream as a kid was to be an astronaut.
Okay.
And one day, I went into class. I was in like 4th grade. I used to sit in the back, and all of a sudden, I could not see the writing on the chalkboard.
Okay.
I'd gone nearsighted.
Oh, and then that kind of disqualifies you.
Back in that time, we didn't have contacts, whatever. In order to be an astronaut, you had to be a
20/20.
proven military test pilot with 20/20 uncorrected vision, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that disqualified me. Of course, had I known when I was younger that, well, hey, in 30 years I could get contacts and go be a scientist, I would have definitely done that.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I said, I always enjoyed science. And so, if I could go back and do it again, I would focus more on the science disciplines and try to become a science astronaut, and go that route. But yes, I would definitely go. If they want an old 60-year-old guy to go to Mars,
You're like, I'm here.
hey, bro, you have to take care of my dogs. I'm sorry.
You can bring them.
Yeah, I can bring them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can see kids called Mars.
You jump once,
Yeah.
float off.
Yeah, so no, I would definitely go. I think it would be terrifying in a way, but it would just be interesting. I remember when I was in the '80s, I joined the military. I was in the Air Force, and I went over to Japan.
Okay.
I'd grown up in Georgia. That culture, it was completely different. I mean, nothing made sense at first. Okay, and I think that's kind of a correlation there. It would be different, interesting, terrifying. But at the end of it, it's like, wow, I did this. I think that would be cool. But yeah, I would definitely go.
Definitely go.
Yeah.
Well,
but let's leave the alien races out of it, though.
You want to go on your own terms.
Yeah,
No, you
exactly.
don't want to be
beamed up
or whatever.
subjected to medical tests or anything like that. Because I already get enough of those with, my doctors here.
Well, James, thank you for a most
Thank you.
interesting conversation. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.